Welcome to another edition of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. On today's show, we have my partner and co host, Yvonne Trost, and we are going to be talking about some really cool stuff how entrepreneurs can manifest success and well being by unlocking the power of quantum physics. Yvonne, how are you?
Excellent, excellent. I'm so excited to share what we have to discuss today with our audience. Today, I'm super excited because we are going to share profound connection between neuroscience and entrepreneurial success, right? So let's get started. Brad, the first question, I really want to make this relevant to our audience. What are some common thought patterns that hold entrepreneurs back? Maybe ones you've experienced in the past or ones that you're working with clients today or have friends that are, trying to work through, as they try and build their business and live their dreams.
Yeah. So I'm going to hit the hardest hitting one first, and that is the limiting belief of not enough. The not enoughness, I believe that almost all human beings to some degree have this feeling of not enough. And where did it come from? It came from this childhood programming, these stressful things we went through as a child. And we just hang on to that because it really served us as a child, but it sometimes destroys us as an adult. So, not enough is one of them. That's what drove me for 47 years. I didn't feel enough. So, I had to make more money, take more risk. So, that's the biggie. That's a big one. Racing mind. I hear that a lot. And the racing mind, again, is from this fight or flight state that is caused by this childhood programming. This stress that we felt in childhood often carries through all the way into adulthood, all the way to our death if we don't do anything about it. So, racing mind, not enough, scarcity. I can't do this. Like there's not enough to go around. This person's better than I am. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, but those are three or four. Working too much. Working too much is a symptom of not enough. And one of our mentors, Marissa Peer, said she's never met anyone who was a workaholic that didn't have self-esteem issues. Why do people work so much typically? It's typically because they don't feel good enough. They don't feel enough. They don't feel good enough about themselves. So they got to keep working and working and working to try to prove themselves.
And do you think most people consciously think that they're not enough and that's why they're working too much or that's why they have that goal that keeps moving on them?
Absolutely not. For 47 years, I had no idea that I thought I wasn't enough. Just the opposite. I thought that I had high self-esteem. I thought that I, didn't care what other people thought. I thought I had self-love. So we developed this quiz. It takes all of 3 minutes to take at bradchandler.com/quiz. So if you might be one of the many people who are being driven by things that you don't even know, take this quiz and it will really shed some light on it. So, Yvonne, what have you learned through your many years of work and through your countless hours of researching on the subject? What causes us to get stuck, and why is it so hard to get unstuck with these limiting beliefs that I just talked about?
Absolutely. So you've probably heard at one point in your life, maybe it was even in high school, right? Neurons that fire together wire together, or cells that fire together wire together. Well, what does that really mean? So every thought you think creates an action in your brain and it sends out a neurotransmitter. And I won't get into all of the details. We're just going to keep it simple here today. So when something happens, your brain creates a signal and there's a certain pathway that fires, right? And you attach a meaning to that trigger. So, Brad, for you, you said that you learned that you always felt like you weren't enough. Like, what was it that made you feel not enough as a child now that you've done the work?
Well, it was the way that my dad treated me. He would hit me with a belt. He would make fun of me. I was in what I felt at the time was a very unsafe house because my parents argued all the time, and it was a lot around money actually. As you and I talked about the other day, money has. I have issues around money because my dad showed his love through money, and then my mom kind of had a scarcity mentality around money that we might run out.
Yeah, so let's carry that through now. Let's use real examples, and maybe you guys can relate to these, or you can insert your own challenge that you're running up against. So, anytime something happens with money or anytime you feel unsafe, your brain has hardwired a path that says, when that thing happens, I'm going to make my body and my mind feel this way. And it's been working for many, many years, like you said, 47 years. And so it is hardwired. And there is a very tight connection between the external triggers and how your brain thinks about it. And because that's been happening so long, right? Those thoughts that create actions that repeat over time, which create behaviors, become automatic unconscious habits. So it is instant. You don't even think about it. Like you're not saying, "Oh, I'm going to worry about taking my girlfriend out to eat because there's money involved." You're not thinking that, but your mind might be thinking that and it might be creating signals. So what happens is you're actually thinking from past memories. And the reason it's so hard to get unstuck and like, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this always seem to be present in my life? Well, it's hardwired and you're actually thinking from your past. So you can only create experiences that resemble the past. And it's just this loop that goes on and on and on and on.
So, why can't we just rewire our minds with positive thoughts alone and maybe throw in some traditional talk therapy or coaching?
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if it was that easy? You could just say, I'm going to stop thinking that way. So there's been so many amazing studies. One of our favorites is Joe Dispenza. So a lot of what we talk about today is going to be inspired by some of the great research and the science-backed work that he's been doing. But what they've discovered is that by the time somebody turns 35 years old, and sometimes earlier, but by the time that you're 35, 95% of your personality and your actions are driven by your subconscious mind. So you've experienced so many things, right? They say we like relive our lives day by day, and then we do like however many, of the same things and they have the same thoughts every day. All those automatic software programs, if you will, call them functions, right? They're just kicking off every single day to the same things. So by the time you're 35 years old, like your conscious brain only has a 5% chance. So when you say, I want to think positive thoughts, or I want to like work with a coach, or, go to some talk therapy, all of those things are just working with 5%, right? Like your conscious mind only has 5% stake in the game, 5% control, right? So it's really hard to change just with those positive thoughts. Because even if you're like super passionate about it, the crazy thing is your body, your physical body and your subconscious mind has become addicted to your thought patterns. It has become addicted to that inner energetic way of thinking. And so it's gonna do everything it can to sabotage your 5% conscious mind.
And we've worked with how many clients who went through every Tony Robbins seminar and read every Tony Robbins book. And they were like, we knew exactly what we should have been doing, but we couldn't do it until we went through your program. And through our program, we accessed their subconscious mind through hypnosis. And that's where the big key is, turning the lock is getting to the part of the brain that creates all of your behavior.
Absolutely. I don't know how many times I've heard, "Well, have the awareness. I get what you're saying. I just can't do it or I can't embody it." Right? And that's because, like, it's so hard. Your subconscious is meant to keep you alive, and it believes that it's created these negative thought patterns because of childhood stressful events or environmental conditioning, things that it thought it had to do to survive. And so it is going to keep doing those things until you learn how to recode it or access your subconscious, right? To give yourself more firepower against what you only have now is 5%. So if you want lasting change, you're going to need to tap into a little bit more. So, Brad, you mentioned a little bit about it, but let's talk a little bit more. What can we do? What can our listeners do to create the change that they're looking for in life, right? We've talked about those entrepreneurial thought patterns, whether they know it or not. They might think, I'm not enough. if you find yourself overworking, if you find yourself always like moving the target and you just can't be satisfied, um, it's probably because you don't feel enough. But like whether it's food or money or business success or whatever it is, all those things are never going to fill you up. So, how do they break those entrepreneurial thought patterns that don't serve them and replace them with things that are not only going to help them with their business performance and achieve their entrepreneurial dreams, but also their personal fulfillment with their family, their friends, their communities? What can they do?
Yeah, so there are 3 R's that I believe are absolutely critical to changing any mental state or limiting beliefs or whatever it is, whatever you're struggling with, bad relationship, addiction, depression. There's 3 things, 3 critical components. And I really feel like these 3 components are missing from 90% of all psychiatry and therapy and life coaching, you name it, family counseling, marriage counseling. And the 3 R's, I'm going to name them and then we're going to dive deep in each one of them. But the first one is to realize. You have to be aware of what's driving the behavior that you want to change. The second is to recode. Now that you know what is driving the behavior, you're going to recode that in your brain. And the third is to reconnect and recondition to your authentic self because all of your problems are a lack of connection with yourself. So let's go back and let's break each one of these down. So realize stage. You have to be aware what's driving the behavior that you want to change. So in my case, I wasn't aware until I stumbled upon doing the work trying to get my son help for anxiety. I didn't think I had any problem at all. I made 5 business mistakes that cost me $9 million over a 7-year time period. I used
Ouch.
alcohol. I used alcohol and weed on a regular basis to feel more comfortable when I was in social settings and whatnot. I had 2 marriages that didn't work out. I had 2 kids that had anxiety and behavioral problems. But again, if you'd asked me, "Hey, do you have self love and do you have a high self esteem?" I would have said absolutely. So it wasn't until I went and did the work that I found out that whoa, what was driving all of this, and why did I buy a boat that I never had bought a boat in my life, and now I own a 40-foot boat and I'm trying to get it to the Bahamas. I didn't wake up and say, "I'm no good. You got to go prove this." But my subconscious mind was screaming, "You are not enough. Go make more money. Go show the world that you are something," including the boat, whatever it took. I even put, I think, unwanted pressure on my son, who was a really, really great golfer, because my subconscious mind was probably thinking, if he can make the PGA Tour, I might be valuable one day. So that's the first R. It's critical that you have all change begins with awareness. And there's so many people, including myself, including you, Yvonne, who had
Mhm.
no idea why they were in the situations that they were in as an adult, because guess what? Those limiting beliefs and thoughts were buried in their subconscious mind.
Absolutely. And should you beat yourself up about it? Like, is it your fault?
It's not your fault at all. No matter what situation you're in, whether you're in a shitty marriage, you eat too much, you've got addiction impressions, you've issues, you've got depression, anxiety, your business is chaotic, you're always like chasing the shiny object. It's not your fault. It is definitely not your fault. It all comes from times in your past, typically in your childhood, when you went through a stressful event or you weren't getting your needs met and you came up with a story. Why is this bad thing happening to me? I must be bad, or I don't connect, or I don't belong. So, no, not your fault. And it's no one's fault, really. It's not your parents' fault either. They did the best they could because they probably went through the same thing as a child. All right. So now we've got the first R taken care of, right? And we actually do that through hypnosis. You can go through plant-based medicine. You can do different things. We feel that hypnosis is one of the better tools on the planet. Why? Because it directly accesses your subconscious mind. I had a client this morning. He had an issue. Uh, we went into hypnosis. I said, "Hey, please tell me the times in your life. Go to a scene that has all to do with this issue." Guess what? He went right there. We unlocked it. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this." I don't know that that would have ever come out in a traditional talk therapy setting because they would have focused on the symptoms. In order to heal mental or physical pain, you've got to go to the source. So now you know what you got going on, right? You know what's driving you. You've got to recode your mind. And this is where quantum physics comes in. You literally can regrow new neural pathways through neuroplasticity. It's just a fancy way of saying your brain's ability to literally grow new neural pathways so that you can change your thinking and thus your behavior. How do you do that? Again, lots of ways you can do it. You can do it through journaling, writing. What we do is we give our clients a tailor-made recording that they listen to at night as they're going to sleep when their brain is in an alpha wave brain state. That's when their brain is one of the most susceptible to suggestion. And ironically, it's theta and beta. Those two states are what most kids spend their life in from 0 to age 7. So basically, you are being hypnotized from age 0 to 7 with whatever is around you. That's what's being implanted into your mind. So when I say it's not your fault, if you're suffering or struggling with anything, it really isn't your fault.
Absolutely, and I think if you're out there thinking, "Well, my childhood was great. It was just like everybody else's that was around me. This doesn't really apply to me." Well, I'm here to tell you I thought the same thing, and what I would say is nobody there's no such thing as perfection. So we know nobody's had a perfect childhood. And it could be something as simple as you didn't feel completely safe in one situation. You didn't feel completely loved, or maybe you didn't feel free to be your authentic self, right? So another great gentleman that we listen to is Gabor Mate, and he talks about you have two needs as a child. One is attachment, because we would die, right, if we didn't have our parents to take care of us as a baby. And the second one is authenticity. So if you don't feel you can be your authentic self, that alone can cause limiting beliefs in you that you yourself aren't enough. So how many of us got grounded or told to be quiet, or we can't dress that way, or we can't eat that way, or we can't do that thing, whatever it was? It could be as simple as that, that have created a limiting belief in you that you're not enough. So just have an open mind. If there's anything in your life where you're just like, I just can't get past this thing, I can't get past this hurdle, I can't reach this goal. Maybe you don't have any problems, but you can't get that opportunity that you're reaching for. There's something in your subconscious that's holding you back, because you're enough just as you are, but your subconscious mind has put up a gate. So that's what we're talking about. Tearing down those gates, ripping out those viruses that you weren't born with. Your mind wasn't born with those viruses, those limiting beliefs. So what we do is we figure out what they are and we rip them out, and then we recode your brain, not with like things to make you look like everybody else, but we help you align to your own true purpose, your own true essence, right? Through our program. And when you find that, then you know what you want to recode yourself, right? It's recoding it to your authentic self, not the conditioned self that you were created to be because of your environment.
So speaking of Gabor, he talks about memories, childhood memories, and a lot of people say, "I don't remember anything bad in my childhood." Frankly, maybe 9.5 out of 10 of our clients show up and say, "No, I had a happy childhood." And after a couple minutes, we find out that it's not quite that way. So he talks about recall and remember. And people that say they can't recall means that they can't literally say, "Hey, at 6 years old, this happened to me." But guess what? You always remember it. And what remembers it? Your subconscious mind remembers it. And why does your subconscious mind remember it? Because thousands of years ago, when you got bit by the lion in the bush, your subconscious mind wanted you to remember it, whether it was the next day or 65 years later, right? So he says, if you think you didn't have a bad childhood, just look at your reactions to conflict. What are you triggered a lot when someone says something? Do you have to be right? So you can look at your relationships. Have you been in deeply connected relationships, or do you bounce from one relationship to next? Do you need drugs and alcohol to cope? Do you eat too much? All of these are signs. So you can look at that, or you can spend 3 minutes, go to bradchandler.com/quiz and take the self love quiz. And that will tell you whether or not you have issues in your childhood. It's as simple as
Yeah,
that.
and
So,
I think a real simple question, like even 1 minute, is asking yourself, when you felt scared or frightened or confused, did you have somebody you could go to unconditionally without fear of judgment or reprimand, right? And you can ask yourself that, did you have that as a child? And then do you have that now with your spouse or your significant other? Or do you have to walk on eggshells?
Yeah, said a little bit
So,
different way. Did you have someone safe when you were a child that you could go to with anything? If the answer is no, then that means your needs weren't met, and that means you likely created some type of coping mechanisms or limiting beliefs that could likely be the source of whatever your issue is that you're dealing with today.
yeah, so we've talked a little bit about we needed to gain awareness. We need to know it's not our fault. We need to realize that even if we think everything was good, it probably could be better, right? There's no judgment, no fear. It's all about how do you create more joy, more success in your personal and your professional life. And so in the recoding, that's where we start to manifest and we start to think about how can we unlock the power of quantum physics. So, once we've connected to our authentic inner self, right? That now we know has always been enough and always will be enough, you can start connecting to your purpose and creating the vision of what you want. And that doesn't have to be a 10-year vision. It doesn't have to be like mine used to be like, oh, well, when my kids are out of school and I have all the bills paid, then I can start living for myself. No, it can be now. It can be like a very near vision. And so with quantum physics, we'll just keep things super simple. Energy really is important here. So modern science has shown us that we're all energy. Everything on this planet is all energy. And there's this huge web of interconnection that whether we can see it or believe it, it's there. So, in that quantum field that we exist in, there are billions of possibilities. So, what we have to do is we have to use our thoughts, think of our thoughts, conscious and subconscious, as messages that we're sending out to that quantum field that's telling it, of those billions of possibilities, these are the ones that I want. I want this, right? But we're not going to attach to outcome and we're not going to say this is specifically how it is. Just as this is the feeling that I want. Now, we said at the beginning of the call, positive thinking wasn't enough. It still isn't. So we've sent out the message, but the only way to bring it back is to actually feel in our heart and in our emotions that it is possible for us, that it's real. And the more we can actually just start feeling as if it's already here, the more powerful our magnet becomes. So that's again where mental rehearsal is so very important. And you can use deep meditation or hypnosis or the recordings that we would make to do that mental rehearsal so that you can start feeling it in every part of your body and using all your senses to believe that it's real. And then that's where the magic happens because then we're neurologically creating a map to our future, a prosperous future, a joyous future that we want versus just repeating the past.
Yeah, because yeah, so many entrepreneurs get into business thinking that just like you said, when the kids are out and the bills are paid, well, when I get this much money, I'm going to feel this way. That's what I thought, not consciously, but unconsciously. I'm going to be happy when I make a bunch of money. And the irony is that if you do the work that we're talking about on this episode, you can get to that state today, tomorrow, a week from now. It's up to you how long it takes, really. You can be in that joyous state, and the opportunity and the chances for you to make the money that you've always wanted to make go up exponentially because you are focused on making an impact. At least that's how I shifted. For 47 years, I tried to make a bunch of money to prove my worth. And then I shifted to making an impact. And that's when my business really took off and my net worth has taken off in these last 2 years since I shifted from doing something out of scarcity and, oh, I'm not enough, so I got to go prove it, to now all I want to do is make an impact. So, all right. So
Absolutely.
that's
So I
the
was just going to say,
second one.
let's recap for people, right? You realize that it's not your fault that you have these stuck beliefs. You recode your mind with what you want after you've reconnected to your inner self. And then the third is that reconnection and reconditioning of your authentic self. It's kind of sounds strange, but we're not used to being our true self. We're used to being what we think everybody else wants us to be or what society, models for us to be. And so again, that's the third is reconditioning and reconnecting to your authentic self using that mental rehearsal to create the future that you want and attract it to you.
Yeah, it's not about fixing you. You don't have to be fixed. You have to be reconnected to your essence, reconnected to yourself before your imperfect parents and imperfect caregivers got their hands on you. And that's not a slight, or that's not to say they're bad, not at all, just the opposite. They were doing the absolute best that they could do given what their conditions were in their environment when they grew up. So now you've realized what's driving you. You're in the process of recoding it, and now you need to condition your authentic self. So, how do you do that? Well, we created this amazing tool called the Joy Regenerator. And you can get it for free at bradchandler.com/joy. And what it does is it teaches you how to process your emotions, because every time you have a disagreement or conflict or an argument with your spouse or your significant other or someone at work, anywhere, and you get upset, it has nothing to do, number one, with the other person, and it has nothing to do with the actual situation. It's your brain doing what your subconscious mind is supposed to do, and that's keep you alive. So it senses danger, because as soon as you get into a negative emotion, you are now in fight or flight. So you're looking for the lion, right? So you go back to that time where the lion bit your hand in the bush. But the analogy is a time when someone made you feel a similar way to the way that the situation today is making you feel. So it has nothing to do. Your upsetness has nothing to do. So with this Joy Regenerator, we teach you how to do that. It's completely free to download. We actually send you a video of myself explaining how to use it. If you do this one little thing, I promise you it's going to change your relationship at work and at home with your kids. Teach your how many of us as kids were taught how to process our emotions? Most of us had to stuff them down. As Gabor says, we press them down. You press enough emotions down, what does it become? It becomes depression. So, a phenomenal tool. If you want to download that, that's part of it. What else can they do in this third stage, Yvonne?
I think don't overwhelm yourself. Don't feel like it has to be all or nothing, and don't feel like maybe you make progress and you slip back and so then you just give up. So, I think each day just wake up and say, "How can I think, believe, and behave differently so that I can produce the life experience that I want?" So you'll see it in the Joy Regenerator when you download it, and it's very simple, very accessible, but has profound impacts. Just next time something triggers you or you feel like you're starting to think negatively about something or you believe something's not available to you, just catch yourself. Just catch yourself and walk through the Joy Regenerator and rethink it again. So, like, if you want a negative outcome, then you keep thinking negatively and you keep believing that that's all that's available to you. But if you want something positive, if you want something limitless, then you just think, believe, and behave differently. So, you got to think it, believe it, and act. And you can start small and just start small and then look for signals. Listen to see changes. Like we talked about the other day on our group coaching call, our group mastermind. Everybody's becoming so knowledgeable and impactful and powerful. It's amazing. Love the tribe that we're building. And we talked about, let's just think about sending out some love or some positive energy to somebody, and then just see if that person calls you or if you run into somebody or somebody's talking about it. It happens. So just start small, have fun with it. And just how can I think, believe, and behave differently? And then make sure you're looking for outcomes because
And
they're
st-
there.
and stay in curiosity. That's another important thing about reconditioning your mind. Get out of judgment and fear and get into curiosity. So, I wonder why what my wife just said really upset me. I wonder when my kids did that, it triggered me. I wonder why I didn't go to the gym this morning. I wonder why I came home and drank 3 glasses of wine. I wonder why we didn't make our sales numbers. Instead of judging, just always remain in a state of curiosity, and you'll see that it's a game changer.
Absolutely. So I think the last thing I'll leave them with is something from Joe Dispenza. He says the quantum field responds not to what we want, it responds to who we are being. So your personality creates your personal reality. So just think about that. Like if you want something, if you want to attract a companion or you want to attract certain types of success, you have to start being that thing that you want, and then it will come.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So you guys can reach out to us at bradchandler.com. Yvonne can be reached at Yvonne, that's YVONNE, at bradchandler.com. And that concludes another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. If you like it, please share the episode. And remember, love heals all.